back. My name is Paul, and I'm doing a series on 2011, as a lot of people know, 2012 transition, and not about what's going to happen in the future, but what's actually happening right now. And many things are happening, and some people are more affected than others. But today I'm going to talk about some things that we can do to basically keep aware and respond to a changing world actually in a very effective way, and that should work out good if we just prepare. And one of the things that's really, really important in my view is navigation. A lot of people do not think much about navigation. There are people that you ask them, okay, from your house, where does your front door face? And they haven't a clue. And I do aerial photography, so I ask those people a lot of times, my customers, do you know which way your building faces? And a lot of times they don't know. And that's really, really a dangerous situation, because let's say you have power outages. Let's say you have major weather situations, or something's going on in a city or traffic area and you need to go somewhere and you need to get to a different place. If you don't know where you are in relation to where you want to go, you're really, really at a disadvantage. I've done a lot of driving in my life, and I've also been a student pilot, and maps are really important to me. And in the old days, of course, I used to use just a physical map, and I had to know and remember things. And nowadays you got all these fantastic tools that you can use. And the problem is that they're dependent on batteries at least, or other kinds of satellites, or other kinds of infrastructure that have to be there. And for a long time on human history, people just navigate by the stars. These days, I'll tell you, hardly anybody thinks about star navigation anymore. But even in World War II, they didn't have GPS. They had little places on the top of the airplane. Some of these bombers, they had to go a long distance. They had a little dome there, and a guy would get out there with a special sextant and start sighting the stars and trying to figure out what the heck where they are. And nowadays we have these incredible, incredible tools, and I'm going to talk a little bit about them. Number one, there's books that you can get. For example, really, really simple. You don't have to be a genius. It's not that difficult. There's 4 main directions. Once you got to memorize, it's really not that difficult, And there are books like this, Map and Compass, Falcon Guide, that have all kinds of really neat demonstrations, how to use a compass, how to sight terrain, how to measure the altitude. With the right little tool, you can measure the altitude of a distant object by knowing doing a little bit of basic math and knowing where you are and roughly how far you are away from something. And if you have any doubt, you pick something that's known and that you can walk to, and you pace it out, and you measure with your steps. And you can get a rough idea how far away something is, how tall a mountain is, and so on. Now, that's really, really important. So I'm going to go through a little bit of tools here, tools of the trade, kind of navigation tools. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to aim the camera in a different direction, and then you'll see my hands. I'll show you what we got here. One of the most important things that you can have if you want to learn how to navigate is a compass. Whether you're in a boat or an airplane or a car, even today, all pilots, no matter how sophisticated equipment that they use in aircraft, they start their schooling by learning how to rely on a very, very simple thing, the compass. In the early days of airplanes, all they had was a really basic compass. But they didn't have a really cheap compass, a crappy compass. They had a really good one. And then you learn, in addition to the compass, you need to learn kind of where the directions are. Now, a lot of people don't realize this, but when you sight a compass, you're going to get the needle to point to where north is at your location. And a lot of people, this is magnetic north. Magnetic north and true north, the center up here, this is magnetic north, or this is the ecliptic, okay? Now let's say the very center of the North Pole is up here. But the magnetism may vary around the North Pole, and that's something that a lot of people don't realize. Wherever you go on the airplane, your runways have to be according to the local magnetic. And that changes, and recently there have been some changes where they have to actually correct the runway heading because it's no longer magnetic north. It may be 5 degrees off. And that happens. A lot of people don't realize this. And there's different places on the Earth. There's some weird places on the Earth that have magnetic anomalies. But if you take a really good compass and you make a number of observations when your present location for magnetic north, let's say I know for the area I'm in is about a 14-degree correction that the North Pole is off by as far as magnetism. And what you have here is a really simple system of figuring out if something were to happen to the magnetic field of the Earth, for example. And now all of a sudden, and we know this for right now, that the magnetic pole of the Earth is switching. It's going about 40 kilometers a year or something like that right now. It's pretty darn fast. It's faster than it has been for a while. And a magnetic pole, basically an electromagnetic thing, they go around, I mean, on a giant scale, they move pretty fast. I mean, so if something were to switch, and you're down on this side of the Earth or something like this, and instead of your compass is now going to point, instead of pointing over this way, maybe it's going to point over this way. Well, as long as you have a reference point on your piece of property, you can figure this out, because you can make two sticks a large distance apart, and the longer the better actually for accuracy, and you put a magnetic pole line that way, and if that were to switch and you suddenly go out there and you notice that, hey, you know, last year the magnetic north was a couple degrees over this way, well, then you know that something is going on with the magnetic field. Now, you can get this kind of information sometimes, you know, on the internet and if you're satellite connected, but there are, like I said, very localized situations with magnetic attraction. So if your compass starts doing weird things, then, you know, it's a little bit of a warning, you might say. So what I'm getting at is you can get yourself a compass, and you need to get a really good one. This one is from the World War. It's been around about 50 or 60 years. It can be used to sight, and there's a mirror here. You can take a reading, a very accurate reading, and I believe this one you can also correct for, like I said, the correction for magnetic north, and it has a glow-in-the-dark arrow here so that you can't see it right now, but it glows in the dark. So you have some very sophisticated, pretty simple things. I mean, they're sophisticated in the sense that they take a little knowledge to know how to use them. Because here's another example, for example. This other compass here is made by Brunton, and it's a plastic device, so it'll withstand any kind of weather. And this is a real nice one here, and it'll last a really long time. It has a transparent base here that you can put on the map, and you can measure more precisely and put your map in facing north, line it up properly, and then you can see where your direction of travel is, and so on. So I suggest people do a little research and get themselves a really, really good compass. And like I said, there are vintage compasses that have lasted for a really long time. So do a little research, and I'm going to end this segment at the moment here, and in my next segment I'm going to describe in more detail a little bit about maps, and for example some of the things that you need. A magnifying glass, for example, allows you to not only see your map really well, but it can also function to help you get fire. And this is often old and larger from a long time ago. Excellent lens, very powerful. So I'll catch you in the next segment.